on from that. But your polo, the polo you're wearing right now, that has got more reaction when I'm wearing it than either the failed state or even this guy, which is new. But like, so even when I'm wearing this, like, it's interesting to me, as big and conspicuous as this is.
Love your face. Hey, Cola, welcome. We invited you here to Leftist and Chill, and we invited everyone in the spirit of building left unity, strength, and power. In that spirit, thanks for being with me today. How you doing? How's your day? What's up?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks very much for asking me on. You and I have been friends on Twitter for a while, but we've never. Hey, nice shirt. I dropped in earlier on your stream just long enough to catch the whole Newman thing. Is Newman still with us? Is
no,
Newman
they
still
got
in the chat?
They got bopped.
Okay, all right.
I tried to give him a chance, man. I gave him as many chances as I possibly could.
And we're joined by Bear the cat here. She is she missed her morning nap with me. She usually in the morning we come downstairs after we wake up and I start working on Cola stuff, and then she sleeps in my arms, and she missed that today, so she's been a little bit moody. So hopefully she's not going to knock over any of the equipment.
Oh my gosh! So literally loves to be held like a little baby.
She loves to be. She
kills me. I want that so bad for my cats. They just don't like to be held like a baby.
Yeah, I mean, most cats don't. She's strange in that regard. I'm not sure what it is with her.
All right, well,
man, it's awesome to be here.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm glad you are here. How about we go ahead and give folks a little bit of an opportunity to get to know you a little bit. So we're going to go into the where are they now. Pretty simple. What do you do? Where can people find you doing it? You just mentioned you wake up in the morning, you do Cola stuff. What's that?
Yeah. Okay. So the Cola Corporation is an apparel and increasingly an art brand that I started that's based in Chicago. And so I'm on social, I'm most active on Twitter. So the handle is @theColaCorp, CORP. The website is thecolacorporation.com. Instagram is the Cola Corporation. But usually I'm on Instagram once a day, but I kind of dwell on Twitter a little bit more. And so, it's an apparel brand. I just felt it started like late in the Trump presidency, where I just got to the point where I felt like I had to do something because things were getting too ridiculous. And it was like, well, what do you know how to do? Well, I've worked in apparel for 9 years, I guess. And so, I just started making designs to try to vent. Basically, that's how the whole thing started. And then I would say probably like last autumn when we did the failed state hoodie that is there under Heavyware. When we released that was kind of when the brand started to come into its own a little bit. So, I mean, that is pretty much it. I spend most of my time on Cola. I mean, there's a ton of, as you know, when you're running your own thing, whatever it is that you do is the least of what you do. In other words, like, I design clothing, but between like that hoodie showing up is me dealing with it in Wicker Park, who completely messed up the first run, and me having to order more hoodies and just do all that horrible logistical boring stuff. So Cola is kind of my life, I guess, in terms of I've got my cats, I've got my wife, I've got yoga, and I've got Cola.
All right. Well, that's really cool. I discovered your stuff. I don't know. It must have been just right about when we started hanging out with each other on the Bird app, and I love a lot of it, and I'm gonna make lots of demands of you. First of all, I need the Rumsfeld Hussein shirt. I need that back. That's got to come back.
Yeah, you are. Because
I'm joking, dude. No, man. I was just it would have been perfect the other day as we were crab dancing on Donald Rumsfeld.
So the thing with that's actually a difficult piece to produce because of the low quality of that video frame.
Yeah.
So that is something that has to be screened on, and when you start talking about screening stuff, it's expensive, and you need to sink money into it, invest in it, and then sit on that inventory. So it's a little bit different than what you can do with on-demand printing. But several people have asked me, so what I might do is put up a Kickstarter for this, and if we can get 25 people who want to throw in for a Rumsfeld Hussein shirt, we could go for it. But I mean, that's still one of my favorite pieces. That's the first shirt we did, just because I felt that handshake between Hussein and Rumsfeld spoke volumes to Cola's mission, which is kill American myths, which I'm thinking about changing to provocation is a public service. But, because he was there in 83, Reagan sent him there to talk to Hussein. Now, at that point, we knew that he was using illegal chemical weapons against the Iranian people, but Rumsfeld did not bring that up in the chat. This is according to the National Archives. He didn't go there to talk about that. He went there to talk about our oil supply chain and how his war was disrupting it and how he needed his help to get oil out of the Gulf. And so what's really kind of fascinating and just shows us how evil Rumsfeld was. So 1983, Saddam Hussein not using illegal weapons, right? Or sorry, he is using, 1983, he is using illegal weapons. He's using chemical weapons against the Iranians. Rumsfeld doesn't care. Right? Doesn't bring it up, doesn't care. 20 years later, Hussein does not have illegal weapons in the form of weapons of mass destruction. Rumsfeld doesn't care. So it's kind of an extraordinary turn of events, in those 20 years. And then on the back of the shirt, I use like fashion nomenclature to, Rumsfeld in collaboration with Hussein, fall, winter 1983. So yeah, that's still one of my favorite pieces. And you're one of many people to ask about it, so maybe I should see if we can get folks to throw in for a small run of screen stuff.
I think I'd throw down on that. I tell you what, you also mentioned, getting a little petition here, and I think you noticed our petition.
I saw that
we started. This is very serious stuff over here. Let's talk about this action figure, this direct.
Sure.
Direct in-action figure is sort of what we've been doing up here. Oh, you got it right there. I love it. First of all, I'm desperate. I'm gonna get one, and folks should know that here's the link here for the fundraiser. Yeah, there's the real deal with Bautista the Rat. Oh
Bautista
my gosh,
the Rat,
codename Snitch.
And so so his nickname is Snitch. So I don't want to talk about. I would never say that this was based on a real person because I would never want to use someone's physical likeness.
Of course.
But this guy here, I'll just really quickly, let me read you his G.I. Joe bio that's on here. G.I. Joe. Oh, I'm saying G.I. Joe as well, which is something that my IP lawyer friend advised me against. But his code name is Snitch. So these guys, chuds, are phony American patriots. They have a kung fu grip and a tenuous grip on reality. And so Snitch, his file name is Ricky Chivato being slang for informer. His primary LARP specialty is undercover source for law enforcement. His secondary LARP specialty is street gang leader. And his bio is Snitch started as an FBI informant following his arrest for trafficking counterfeit Flintstone vitamins. After or during his informant career, Snitch became leader of the Soft Boys, a street gang that violently opposes all Americans who do not conform to the gang's quote-unquote Western Civ aesthetic. Snitch attends soft boy rallies with his pet rat Bautista, who wears a radio transmitter collar. While Snitch yells into a megaphone, Bautista scurries around his antenna, picking up chatters from soft boys in the crowd. The final recipient of these transmissions is as yet undetermined. So this was a lot of fun to make. So, if you have any awareness of fascist street gangs, you have a pretty good idea of who the sad boys are based on. And if we pop him out of his blister pack, you can see the detailing on him here with his polo shirt with the champagne piping around the sleeves and the collar. He has White Claw in his tactical vest, a can of White Claw, which those of you who are familiar with the real life inspiration will appreciate. And the thing is, okay, so there's a couple things with Bautista's radio transmitter collar.
Yes.
And one of them is so he scurries around the sad boy meetings picking up this chatter. We don't know who's getting it, right? So it's just amazing to me that the sad boys in real life, they're the real life street gang that the sad boys are based on, that they have an FBI informant leading them. Like, that's wild. It's absolutely insane to me, because as far as they know, he could still be working with them, right? But so they have a snitch working for them. But then the other thing is this guy, the real life guy who became a snitch here in this story after he was caught trafficking counterfeit Flintstone vitamins. And real life, the guy was busted for trafficking. He was repackaging and selling stolen insulin kits. And that's when he flipped. And so he did that, now he's got a website where he sells stuff that is still ripping off Fred Perry IP. It's not transformative. He's not doing anything with it. He's just putting their laurel wreath on stuff. So this is not a high character guy, right? But one of his failed enterprises was he started a Kickstarter. This is real life. This is not snitch. This is the real life person. Started a Kickstarter where he wanted to put cameras on your pet collars so that you could experience the world through their eyes. and it failed, but that is one of the digs with Batista's collar. And then, of course, the rat is Batista, because as a fascist Cuban or American of Cuban descent, our friend here in real life would love Batista, hate Castro. So all of that stuff. So there's layers, man. But yeah, this was a lot of fun to put together. And so this is, speaking of layers, if you go to the fundraiser, which you can find the link for that on our website. If you go to the website, the pinned tweet on our Twitter, and it's in our Instagram bio. It's a fundraiser page, and we have 4 tiers. The 4th tier sold out. It was a $150 tier, where you would get the action figure, you would get a poster of this artwork with the blister packs removed, a nice 16 by 20 poster. You would get a swag pack, which would have soup for my family, as well as like some of our stickers, which, you have the badge for this on your cap, and you would also get the badge along with our popular Calvin Blue Lives flag. And then the other thing that you got with the $150 package is I would design a one-off t-shirt for you. So our friend Robert Evans, our leftist podcasting buddy, he purchased that tier. And I was surprised how quickly that sold out. So now we still have tiers 1 through 3 available. But yeah, we're at like $1,900. The goal is $5,000. We have 3 more weeks or 2.5 weeks to go. So if you guys are into, and by the way, I'm making no money on this at all. We're going collaboration between Cola and Bootleg Bonanza, which is they're bootleg toy makers in Pennsylvania. 3 guys there. And so all of these are being handmade. These are not being 3D printed. These are all being hand modded from existing figures. And I'm going to pay those guys a pittance that they ask for very little money for this, because they believe in the mission. And the mission is 100% of the profit will go to HIAS, which is a Jewish organization that advocates for immigrants from all nationalities who are in the United States. So we have Jewish people and we have immigrants, who are 2 groups who the sad boys, fascist street gangs, would not like, basically, right? So basically this whole thing is I wanted to take the iconography of fascists and turn it against them via satire and then through the donation part of it. So yeah, I literally will make 0 cents on this. Gonna pay the guys in Pennsylvania, and then the rest will go to HIAS to help immigrants.
That's some really cool stuff there, Cole. Very thoughtful, amazing of you. I just love the whole concept. And yesterday we were riffing on the idea, like imagining, sort of like an animated TV show, like a la late 80s, early 90s in that style, G.I. Joe style. G.I. Joe style. Yeah. Oh, man, I would really love to see that. That would be so fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things I was like, how, again, it's just hard to secure
Yeah.
resources for this stuff when you're just kind of bootstrapping, right? But to do those PSAs that GI Joe did, the more you know, where like he just to have him standing in court with his lawyer and go through kind of like Rick and Morty. The Rick and Morty people did this one-off on YouTube where they went through this really insane transcript of a guy who was talking to the judge, like eat my dick, and all this stuff, like similar to that, but just read through the real transcript where in court his lawyer was like, my client has been a valuable asset to the FBI, and then an FBI agent being like, yes, this guy has helped us take out pot houses, he's helped us take out this, and then he gets interviewed about it, and all he has to say is, I don't recall that.
Yep.
So doing
Amazing.
that as a PSA would have been awesome. So anyway, but yeah, no, I'm
really
totally
cool.
with you.
It sounds like a lot of fun. You've really thought out these characters. They got backstory. It just feels like it wants to become something like that. You had another character I think we pulled up yesterday, which is a riff on someone whose name probably shouldn't say. They love milkshakes.
Yeah. And there's in that art, there's a milkshake coming into the picture. It's the guy holding up a selfie stick on himself, and he's wearing like one of those propeller caps, and then his flak jacket says "press" in quotes. So that guy's code name is Fake News. So we will make fake news if we meet the $5,000 goal here. Fake news will happen if we can get the $5,000 goal. I have reached out to the man who inspired Fake News to tell him about this and ask him for a retweet, and it hasn't happened. And I kind of feel like I'm not getting a lot of help here as an independent artist trying to get a boost from these established blue check accounts. Lori Lightfoot has refused to retweet my my Chicago Cruiser sweater. She refused to retweet that. Oh, I hit up the Fraternal Order of Police and asked them to retweet it. They didn't. So I feel like I'm not getting a lot of here.
Left you on red, dude.
Shot, so
left you on read. Look at this.
Yeah,
rude.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Oh, that's rich. Okay. Cola, let's keep digging in. I want to get to know you a little bit more, and perhaps we'll have a little bit more time to talk about that. And okay, before we depart, anything else like we need to that you'd like us to know about your brand and what you do over there?
Not particularly. Like, I will say for like local folks, 10% of our failed states hoodies. 10% of these sales has gone to the Chicago community bond. This is actually a really difficult piece to produce because of the graphics on the front pouch. That is something that like I've never seen before. Yeah. And it requires them to do like some pretty intricate clamshell screening on that. And then on the back, I'm always trying to stick details somewhere. So it has Kill American Myths on the back, but it's concealed if you have your hood down. So 10% of that has gone to Chicago Community Bond Fund. 10% of sales from the Soup for My Family has gone to the Chicago Food Depository. And so I say that just to say that, like, it's kind of a weird space to be in sometimes. And you've experienced this too, I think, where people can criticize you for having for selling merchandise that has certain iconography, right? Mm-hmm. And how you're selling something for profit. That's not leftism and all this. So there's a component of cola where even though we're still very much a growing brand, but I am trying to redistribute some of the profit I make to the community here. So apart from that, no, I think that I would encourage folks to check out the site. There's tons of stuff on there.
We've been dropping the links in the chat throughout. Here's a link to Twitter, to the fundraiser, and in the Cola Corp itself, .com. Awesome. Yeah, I love the polo. Wore it out in Minneapolis last week. Got a couple looks from some people. My partner's like, "Are you sure no one's gonna beat you up?" I'm like, I'm not worried. I'm fine.
I will tell you that. So when I have, so a lot of folks have gotten responses to the failed state, which is always fun when people share those on Twitter. A woman who lives in Las Vegas, wore her failed state hoodie to drop off her vote last year, and someone yelled at her and called her Antifa, like "You're an Antifa." So a guy who is in Albuquerque, has told me that a couple times that he's worn it, people have asked him, "Did you go there? Like, did you attend failed state?" And then I was actually, when we shot the first run, which sold out the first colorway, but I might reintroduce it. It was West Point colors, a black hoodie with gold and white lettering. A guy down there like kind of pointed out and laughed about it. So there's all kinds of different reactions that come from that. But the polo you're wearing right now, that has got more reaction when I'm wearing it than either the failed state or even this guy, which this is new.
Yes.
But like, so even when I'm wearing this, like, it's interesting to me, as big and conspicuous as this is, fewer interactions with that than I have with with the piece that you're wearing today. And I actually had a moment where I was walking down the street, like on a Saturday or Sunday morning, and there was a couple, mom and dad couple, walking towards me. And dad's pushing the stroller. Dad has his baseball cap on backwards, and he's wearing like a Ralph Lauren polo, right? And I'm wearing my polo, which I have your shirt in black. And I'm not saying that he's afraid, but as I approached him, his eyes were locked on the guillotine and he was headed towards fear. It was not computing. And you could tell he was confused. And to some degree, I'm not saying that he was like running away scared, but he seemed unsettled. I'll leave it at that. He seemed unsettled. Which is kind of the point, right? Because like we have gotten used to that spot on a polo shirt signifies it had like class signifiers, a polo player, or the Lacoste alligator, which is all about like, tennis and Rene Lacoste and all this stuff. And then so we're trained to see certain status signifiers when we at that part on a polo shirt. Burberry has the equestrian with the lance and everything. And so when you see a guillotine, it just short circuits, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think that's kind of my jam.
Hey, Bear.
Hey, Bear.
And I can't help but notice the cap, dude. Is that first of all, is that embroidered? Is that a one-off? That is fucking beautiful. I'm losing my mind over here.
Oh, thanks. So this is a one-off. My friend in Los Angeles is a chain stitch artist.
Oh,
so like on our clothing, like basically all stitching is lock stitching. It all looks like dashes, right?
All right.
But if you think about, I'm going to change my posture here so that Bear does not knock our setup over. But if you think about like, for those of you who have cat litter bags or like dog food bags, or if you grew up on a farm, like fertilizer bags will have a strip at the top. And then there is like the stitching that you kind of jerk on and you can rip it all out. And that's chain stitching. So that's a very traditional stitch that used to be on like the hems of jeans and other things. The thing is, lock stitching is much better, but chain stitching is this aesthetic thing that dudes who are into selvage denim and insist on having. And so and it's on these machines that are notoriously temperamental. They're called Union Specials. But unlike a sewing machine that has an arm here, Union Specials are just vertical. So you have total control over, you have 360 control over moving the garment. And so my friend, she did all this freehand. This is all freehand. This wasn't like, this is not a stitching machine or an embroidery machine. She did all of that just on the sewing machine. So it's something that is just absolutely 100% not feasible for me to offer to people because it would cost it's just a stupid amount of money, especially because this is not the emblem that the Angels use now. Right.
Oh,
so
okay.
you have to find the hat, and
Yeah.
that's a little bit more expensive than a usual $59.50 hat, and blah, blah, blah. So it's just not feasible for me to offer it. So I did make the t-shirt. So the t-shirt is on the site. The Angels ACAB shirt, where I just ran like all these graphics the chest. So it's still,
great.
yeah, there you
go. Awesome. I want all the shirts, dude. I fucking love it. Amazing. Really stoked. I think I ordered the Castro tee. Looking forward to that one.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Okay, so because I handle maybe like half our orders myself, and
I was wondering, yeah.
I saw. So your Castro tee is being printed, but did you get the other stuff? Yeah, it looks like you got the button, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I did. I'm stoked. Got the button. Got the throwable soup. Bunch of stickers. Right. Really appreciate that. I love it. I love it.
For sure.
It's awesome. The chat's been really enjoying it too. Every time I pull it up. Okay, so let's go ahead and move along to the next part of our chat here, Cola.
Sure.
We're going to talk a bit about your leftward-bound journey, and maybe we've mentioned a couple things along the way. You can feel free to re-mention those or dig more into detail, but effectively, what does it mean to you to be left? What is, how did you get to the left? What along the way brought you here?
Sure. So first, I would say that I will never. So hang with me here for a second.
Yeah.
I will never identify as leftist. And the reason why is because of the online left. Because I will not engage in a pissing contest. I will not take a purity contest. I am actively disinterested in accumulating or flexing leftist street cred. I don't care. I believe that capitalism is inherently exploitative. I believe that neoliberalism is a scourge that is destroying the world, literally destroying not only cultures and societies, but the environment, the climate, the earth. I believe that all human beings deserve safe housing, nutritious food, medical care, and meaningful work. So wherever that all of that puts me on the four square political compass, I'm comfortable with that. And if that's leftism, great, that's fine. Like, I'm just not going to.
Uh-oh. Lost the video here. Lost Cola. Oh, I think we're back. I see.
Who was the person we were talking about earlier who was Newman, right? Like,
Newman.
I'm not going to go there with you. And I don't even know if Newman is a leftist, but there are plenty of people I've met online who are leftists like Newman. I'm not going to do it. And so also, I wouldn't call myself a leftist because in a way I don't feel like I've earned it, because my only exposure to theory has been via like secondary sources. When I read about clothing, like right now I'm reading a book on fashion during Italian fascism and how Mussolini used fashion, the fashion industry, but also the uniforms and aesthetic of dress, right? How he used both those things. So there might be like socialist thought, leftist scholars introduced through those books. But that's the only theory that I have any exposure to. So like Marx's coat that he pawned, right? I'm vaguely familiar with all that, but I'm not, I don't have that exposure. I would be much more comfortable describing myself as anti-fascist. I'll say that. I'll stand up and declare that anytime, anywhere, because to me, that just seems kind of obvious, even though bizarrely being anti-fascist is up for debate these days. And the people who claim to hate fascism describe themselves as anti-fascist. But anyway, that's kind of my thing. So yeah, like capitalism, neoliberalism, no. Safe housing, nutritious food, medical care, and meaningful work, yes. I want people to not be alienated from their species being. So wherever that puts me, great.
Awesome.
And as far as but as far as getting there, it's something that I've always kind of, I can remember, I think during the 2000 election, I was in like I was up north somewhere and somebody had written on the sidewalk like Gore, Bush, Pepsi, Coke. And I remember thinking like, no, because that's an actual choice. Like it's Pepsi or Diet Pepsi. Like that's the choice. It's not, because if you buy Coke or Pepsi, like that's an actual choice between two corporations. Whereas I've always kind of considered Democrats and Republicans to be in collusion in a way, not conspiratorially, but they're part of like the same neoliberal ecosystem that's constantly reinforcing itself. But it wasn't until just like, really recently where I was. And so because of that, because of kind of, not to compliment myself, but seeing through the charade a little bit, and being like, well, we're screwed. Like the earth is screwed. They're going to destroy the earth. These people, I never voted for anything besides the NBA All-Star game until 2016. And I registered to vote specifically to vote for Bernard in the Illinois primary. So, and because the reason I did that was because like the only thing that's really changed over time for me is kind of this creeping awareness is like, well, it's great for you that you can wait out fascism. Like, yeah, like you can like have probably a pretty good run, take cola offline, stop, take my Twitter offline. I could probably get through it. But that is just absolutely not an option for a lot of people. And I'm becoming more and more aware, like the existential threat that America is posing to Americans who just who just aren't like me. And so the thing that has really changed, I would say, if I've had any kind of an evolution of my thinking or awareness, has just been like, oh shit, like this is really fucking people up. The thing that is kind of like an aesthetic inconvenience for me or something is having deadly implications for hundreds of thousands of millions of other people, not only in America, but around the world. And eventually that shit is going to catch up to me, even if I wanted to be selfish. So that is kind of like, I guess, how I've arrived at where I am.
And I think, as you were mentioning before, and someone's asking in chat, what was the inspiration from cola? I think these things also, as you were mentioning before, sort of led you to the creation of the brand and the kind of stuff that you make today, and why you make that stuff, as opposed to just any other clothes. I guess I don't know what I'm trying to say, but non-politically aware clothes.
Yeah, it was kind of like just looking at like, well, what do I know how to do? Yeah. I just felt like I just felt like I had to say something, and it was like, well, what's my skill set? And it's like, well, I've worked in apparel for, I could do this, and I don't think that a t-shirt's going to change the world necessarily, but it has been interesting to see like people be really enthusiastic about some of the stuff that I do, and it's been really nice. But yeah, no, that is the reason. Just feeling like I had to say something, and how do I know how to speak? It's through apparel.
All right, cool. Now let's move along. We got some more to ask you about. So this is #BeBest. This is like we're thinking about giving advice, general life advice, or even politically minded advice to help others along the way, perhaps reach this similar conclusions or whatnot. But and if it helps to think about a younger version of yourself, going back in time and visiting them, maybe that might help you answer the question. So, yeah, #BeBest, Cola. What do you think?
Well, quickly, like a younger version of me, like not to be pedantic, but like everything that I've been through has gotten me here talking to you, and this is pretty good, right? And so I don't really, and it was excruciating. My life was excruciating for a while, but it got me here. So I don't think I would go back and tell them anything, because I want to get back here, right? And who knows, if I were to go back and give them great advice, could be dead. You never know. But the one time I gave, I have given my friends' children advice and trying to encourage them, and sometimes in ways that didn't work out. Like one of my best friends has a son named Koyo, and Koyo is a very clever, ingenious 12-year-old. And he was really into magic. And one time, I was visiting, and he wanted to see something on my phone, and he was asking me how I don't know how like how an application worked or how interfaces work. And I was like, I don't know, but you should find out and tell me. And I was like, you know what? I was like, you should hack my phone. Like, I would love it if you could hack into my phone. Like, that is because I think I'm like inspiring him to like learn technical skills. And he's like, oh, how do I learn that? And I'm like, I have no idea, man. Just it's on the dark web. And then his mother is like, actually, I'm not sure if we want Koyo going on the dark web. And I was like, right. But the one time that I have given my friends' kids advice where my friends were like, that was really helpful, is one of my friends' kids who was, again, she was probably like 12, 13 at the time. She was having a hard time just kind of like, stuff's happening with her and her life. And she was just kind of uncomfortable and not really knowing who she was or where she fit in. And I told her when we were all together at, outside at kind of like a barbecue. And I told her, I was like, when I was your age, I thought that adults had the answer because they would always give me, like, when I would ask them questions like, what happens when we die or whatever, I don't know. They would like give me kind of these like flimsy answers. And then there were times when I would see my mom and my dad like whispering and kind of tense. And I was like, oh, whatever they're talking about is the stuff they won't tell me. And so they know what's going on. And I was a kid and I was very confused. And I felt like I was stupid. I felt like I wasn't getting it, like just life stuff in general. And as I'm getting older and and they're giving me answers and giving me advice about stuff that I don't understand and telling me like, do it just because and not explaining things. And I thought that once I got to be my parents' age that when I was young, their age when they were in their late 20s or whatever, that I would understand life. And I tell her, what I can tell you is that adults do not have any more clue than you do what's going on. And so when they try to seem like they do, it is, they're just trying to compensate. And I was like, your parents don't have any clue what's going on. Like nobody has a clue what's going on. So all these feelings you have of not getting it, like you get it just as much as anybody else. And you are, however you can make sense of this for yourself without hurting others, building values, all that stuff is fine. And so I think if I were to go back, if I were to tell my younger self anything, I'd be like, just relax and like trust that this will get better, as confusing, as awful as this is. Because I was known in second grade for coming in with my aluminum Sesame Street lunchbox, and coming in first thing in the morning and slamming it on my desk and putting my head down and weeping. Oh. And to my classmates' credit, at least to my face, nobody, not the bully, not the nasty kids, nobody ever made fun of me about it. And the teacher, strangely, never talked to me about it either. So it was just this thing I did. But if I could talk to him, I'd be like, I understand how confusing all of this is for you. But if you can just try to relax and move through this stuff, it's going to be okay. So that's what I would say.
Beautiful advice, Cola. Really good stuff. Okay, so Cola, next up is the Inquisition. It's the questionnaire. You can skip any question for any reason, and then maybe we'll have a little bit of time to keep vibing afterwards. So our first question here is: do you have a favorite word?
I do not have a favorite word. I do have a favorite punctuation mark.
Yeah,
which is the M dash. So that's like the long. Yeah. That's the long dash. On some keyboards, if you hit a double dash, it will automatically convert it to the M dash. Because so I think about this. I spent a long time writing. That was part of my life before Cola. I wrote about clothing as a copywriter and then also as a journalist. And so I spent a lot of time writing. And it occurred to me that I thought about writing as designing, right? So our eyes move left to right, up and down in the West, right? Uh, Left to right, up and down the page. But our eyes also move left to right, up and down across the sentence that we're reading. And so when I was writing, the thing I always wanted to avoid was it was like grooves in a vinyl record. I never wanted the reader's eyes to skip and have to go back to the beginning. So there's like, and part of that is just knowing how to break up sentences. And part of that is things like capitalization, and it's also punctuation. And so it can be really easy to overuse the M dash because it gives you that nice pause, and it gives like when Sartre would talk about blinking as this little, respite, this momentary respite when your eyes close and open. That's kind of what the M dash does. It just gives you this little bit of elbow room in the sentence as the reader's eyes move left to right, up and down across the sentence. So yeah, I always thought of writing as designing, and in the writer/designer's toolkit, the M dash is extremely valuable.
Sort of helps with like rhythm, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Right. M dash. Beautiful. Do you have a least favorite word or punctuation?
I guess, I try to like not be an old man about things, and like, no, it has to be, in my day, like, whatever. But like, I'm not a fan of the comma splice, which is basically just separating run-on sentences with a comma. But I mean, it is how we talk, and so if you use it in dialogue, that's great, whatever. I'm not a fan of it. I don't use it like when I write, but that's just a personal preference. Like I don't judge it, right? And then kind of along these lines, I really am a strong advocate of the Oxford or serial comma. And anytime, I don't really care if people don't use a serial comma unless it just creates a train wreck at the end of the sentence, right? So yeah, but I try to not have pet peeves because it's just silly. But if it doesn't impact the reader's experience, if it doesn't negatively impact it, then go for it. Like there are the only rule is for the reader to have a good experience, and that maybe them having a good experience is for them to be occasionally confused by what you're doing because you want them to stop and go back to the beginning of the sentence. But in my experience, I would say that is maybe once every 50 pages or something, right? You usually, and sometimes, and so like this is another thing is people can be very dogmatic about passive voice. But there are times when the passive voice is good because you need to empathize with your reader and think about how they're reading the sentence. So how you introduce things can prep their mind, can get them ready for the next few words. So just how you arrange objects, direct objects, verbs, this stuff. So I try not to be dogmatic or have favorite or least favorite words or parts of speech or punctuation or whatever. I would just say, as long as it's a good experience for the reader, then do whatever you want.
I'm stoked you went in that direction with that question. That's fun. Okay, Cola, what is your favorite drug, favorite vice, and or guilty pleasure? You can give me one or three different answers. It's up to you.
Okay. Favorite drug would be caffeine.
Yeah.
I've been sober. I've been clean and sober for 16 years.
Oh my gosh, congrats.
May 18th, 2005. So that's so I just had 16 years. So caffeine is the one thing that's left, right? So that's my only drug, I guess. So then vice. Well, considering what I just told you, I'd say that my one vice, it's probably doom scrolling, where I'm like, this is not good for me, but I just need a little bit more. And guilty pleasure. Okay. So I get really kind of down that I don't listen to much new music, right? It kind of like bugs me because one thing that really bugs me is, the internet is great because it gives us access to so much unbelievable amount of information. And I know that there are like 100 bands that I've never heard of that I would love if somebody just dropped the link, right? But instead, like a lot of stuff that I end up listening to is the same old stuff, right? So guilty pleasure, I was thinking about this the other day because a moment of shame for me is when the year-end Spotify list comes out, and I'm like, and everybody's listening to bands like Crocodile Plastic Incorporated, and I'm like, what is this? I don't know what this stuff, and because mine is just kind of the same old. But I was thinking the other day that this year's end of list is probably going to have at least one song from the Gin Blossoms, and I'm not proud of it. But I'm also not going to stop listening to that track from time to time. So that would probably be my guilty pleasure at the moment.
Is it One Headlight? Because that song it sounds so good in my ears. I love that fucking song.
Man, I gotta tell you, I don't even know if I know that one because there's the Gin Blossoms Discourse. There's the tracks that I know are Hey Jealousy. I
think I'm confused.
And then they had a couple more. No, I think One Headlight was their album.
I'm thinking Wallflowers. Jacob Dylan, Wallflowers.
Wallflowers. Oh, got it. I can see how you would make that mistake, though, between Gin Blossoms.
I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm sorry.
I feel like a lot of those bands are like kind of the same band. Like I'm like Gin Blossoms, Goo Goo Dolls, Wallflowers. I'm not trying to. I hope I'm not insulting anybody. There's wherever Newman is probably. Would probably call us out on lumping those three bands together. But yeah, that is probably my guilty pleasure, would be sort of music that I've listened to a million times.
That's a good way to put it. That might be one of mine, maybe my biggest guilty pleasures too, now that you bring that up. Cola, what is your favorite cheese?
So my wife is famous for her, I don't know what you would call them, like food platters for parties. So her friends will ask her to prepare these things. So it's like snack platters, right? And so there's like chocolate covered pretzels and things along those lines. And so she brought home like leftovers where people didn't eat this cheese. So the only cheese, I basically eat the same thing every day, literally. And so the only cheese that I eat is this like white cheese. I don't even know what it is. Maybe like a white cheddar. I don't know. And I just know what the package looks like, right? And so she brought home is just like very ordinary cheddar cheese that was in cubes. And she's like, oh, there's this cheese here if you'd like to eat it. And I was like, it was so good. It reminded me of the Parks and Rec episode where the guy with the mustache is he's competing with the Rob Lowe character for like who can make the best burger, and the Rob Lowe character is making like this vegan burger that is like this piece of art, and then he just fries up hamburger and he's like, it's cow, that's all that it is, period. And people are like, this is amazing. That's how I was with this cheese. I eat a cube of it and I'm like, this is fantastic. And it was just like, I don't know, orange cheddar cheese. Like I have no clue besides that. But yeah, that stuff was really good. So I will eat all of the orange cheese you can get.
I love me some cheese. We had to start asking everyone that question. It's an important question. Colo, in terms of reincarnation, if at the end of your life you could come back as a plant or a non-human animal, and if you could choose, what would you pick?
A plant or a non-human animal?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, so magic mushrooms are a fungus, so that's not a plant.
But it's
I guess I would want to come back. This might sound weird as a guy who's been sober for a little while, but I would, if I were to come back as a plant, I guess like ayahuasca is a plant. Is that right? Ayahuasca is a plant, I think. Sure. Or like some, kind bud. I would want to be something that would help people, contemplate, right? Maybe get on a different wavelength. So, and like not any of this weird stuff that it's not weird. It's fine, whatever you want to smoke. But the stuff that they're doing in dispensaries, where I guess everything is like kind bud now. Like there's no swag anymore. There's no like Mexican brickweeder or something. Like I haven't seen weed in 17 or 16 years, so I don't know.
Yeah, I will say like there's a growing movement online of people who are trying to bring back what are called mids, and I think that's a terrible idea because I like the good stuff.
And so is that like mid-range THC? Is that the idea?
I guess so. Yeah, people are sad of getting too high. They get too stoned, they say. I'm like, that's not a problem I have.
So that happened to me. I would get so anxious.
There you go.
And I remember one time I was at my buddy's house because one of the things I love to do was get like a dirty 30, a PBR or old style, go to my friend's house, yes. We'd smoke up and play FIFA on his PlayStation because you just get so like zoned in. But sometimes like I would get super anxious and I would have thoughts that I couldn't shake. Like one time specifically, so again, this is like 16, 17, 18 years ago, whatever. I got high and I my mind locked in on this idea of someone pinning me down on the floor with their knees on my shoulders and smashing my teeth with a claw hammer. And it just completely ruined my high, as you might imagine. So I can sympathize maybe with people who want mids. Like I saw like something dad grass where it's like there's no psychoactive stuff. It's just like you're just mellow. And like maybe I'm there at this point in my life if I were to smoke again. But no, I would want to be, and I wouldn't want to be any of the stuff that they're cooking up in dispensaries. I would want to be some of the indica, Meigs County Gold, it was called, that my Uncle Dan planted in the hollers and the hills of Meigs County, Ohio. Like that's what I would want to be, helping some good old boys back in my home township, like open up, right, and get information beamed in. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I would want to come back as, I think.
Yeah, I think that dad grass, I think it is just CBD flower. You can get that in some stores around here in the city.
Well, okay, what is CBD exactly? Like, is it like not psychoactive? Is it a body buzz, or like what's the deal?
So, like, if I'm not mistaken, and someone in chat can correct me, and I'm not going to speak with any amount of confidence here, but you know, there's different receptors in your brain, and there's CBD receptors, there's THC receptors. THC is psychoactive, and CBD is not. I don't notice anything. People say CBD relaxes them. I don't notice a thing. I don't notice the thing.
Okay.
But I smoke a lot of weed, so maybe I have a high tolerance. I don't know.
I will tell you this. So I don't know. There was a woman known as the bread lady who would go around to like Danny's, Gold Star. Have you ever heard of her?
No.
Because there were two like folk heroes when I was actively drinking. Because I would exclusively go to, I never went to nightclubs or, I would go to like Danny's, Estelle's. I don't know if Estelle's is still open. That place was a like fucked up meat market. 4 a.m. Nick's. There used to be a bar right called the Beechwood, which at Wood and Milwaukee, I guess. And now it's something else. But there were like two folk heroes, or three, because you had the Camel Girls. When the Camel Girls showed up, everybody's like, because you give them your driver's license, they take a photo, and they give you like 3 packs of smokes, right? Oh. So they were very popular.
Oh, right.
But then the real heroes were the tamale guy.
Yep.
Who would go around, his wife made tamales, and he'd go around with like an igloo cooler and sell them. And he would save your life sometimes when you were drinking too much and you needed something to soak that up. And then there was the bread lady. So the bread lady made bread, right? And she would walk around with a basket of bread. She wore a beret. She was a pool shark. She played pool all the time at Gold Star. She was very good. Her name was Shirley. But I didn't know that the bread was just a front, that she really sold edibles.
Oh.
And so I was dating a woman who saw her at Danny's, and she's like, "Oh, Shirley's here. Do you want to eat a brownie?" And I'm like, "Sure, I love brownies." And at some point I realized that what I'm eating is an edible. And it was the only time in my life I have done a lot of LSD. I have done a lot of psilocybin. I have sucked down a lot of massive nitrous balloons in Grateful Dead parking lots. But it was the only time in my life that I saw music. We went to the Charleston, which was a bar like on Charleston, but in just near me. And we're just sitting there and there's music playing. And I saw the frequencies of music like between me and my girlfriend. And that was wild. So when people talk about like when the edibles, that's the only time I've ever eaten edibles because it just wasn't in vogue back when I was active. But when people talk about like when the edibles hit, like I have some idea of what they're talking about.
The edibles hit. Oh my gosh. I've tripped a time or two on some weed. I've tripped. When my tolerance is low, it can happen, dude. It can happen. They can get you. Okay. I love that answer. Moving on. What would God say, Cola, if at the end of your life you go to heaven or, your version of that or whatever, and then God's speaking to you, what would you like to hear them say to you?
I had a friend who ran a blog. He was, I don't know how to pronounce this philosopher's last name, but he was a big fan of this guy. Emil, it's not Cioran, but that's how it's spelled, like Cioran. And that informed, this guy was very bleak, this philosopher. My friend was very bleak too. But so he blogged a lot about that guy. And then he would just like put up random blog. And then one of them was a conversation between my friend, like arriving in heaven, and his discussion with God. And so God is basically like, welcome to heaven. And my friend asks, hey, was it supposed to hurt like that all the time? And God says, yeah. And my friend said, oh, good. I was worried I was doing something wrong. And I think like that is pretty much the discussion that I would have with God. Now, again, I no longer feel that way. It took a really long time for me to kind of get to a point where I no longer feel that way. But I lived in that kind of mindset long enough. It would still be something I'd want to like kick around with the old man upstairs, like maybe we can figure out how to take it easier on people going forward.
Gotta be a better way. We can imagine a better way, right? All right then. Let's think of if we were to try to bring together a left, maybe in a third party or something like that. Someone came up with this idea in developing something like a 15-point platform or a plan. What would some of the policy positions or things that you would love to see? Maybe a couple two-tree examples of something you'd like to see on that.
Yep. Couple two-tree. I mean, honestly, probably just what I said before when we started talking that. I believe that every human being deserves and is entitled to nutritious food, safe housing, medical care, and meaningful work. And then maybe the fifth point would be something like don't be a dick. that might be my fifth point in the leftist platform.
I mean, we're going to be partying. I don't want to be hanging out with assholes.
Right, exactly.
Pretty simple, uncomplicated shit right there. Next up, who is an influential leftist, be them dead or alive, that you would love the opportunity to be able to meet and talk to? You can feel free to let us know how a hypothetical conversation might even go.
Sure. Okay. Well, and so in here, I will just offer the disclaimer that I'll probably show my ignorance here that I talked about earlier of not, knowing theory, but I would want to talk to Marx. I'd want to talk to him about his coat. And
did you tell me about that? You mentioned that. I'm not aware of Marx's coat. You said
there's this. So the idea is that Marx was so poor that he would have to pawn his coat from time to time to have money to eat, to survive. But what happened? So that is one form of value this coat has, right? Because he goes to the pawnbroker and the pawnbroker says, all right, I will give you this much money to hold this coat. And Marx agrees, or he doesn't agree, that yes, that is the value of that coat. So there's that. But then the other value of the coat is that when he didn't have his coat, he couldn't study at the British Library because you had to have a coat. So there's this value of status, right, and of the code of the coat as a signifier of status. And so I would want to talk to him just about that idea and how, I would want, because I think now we're getting into like the idea of commodity fetishism, right, of like that items of clothing can have like totemic value. So I'd want him to talk to me about just pawning his coat and that idea of these two forms of value. And then I think I would also, because now, okay, so when Marx was studying at the British Library, I'm assuming they had these dress codes because you were supposed to be proper, right? You were supposed to be proper and look proper. And at some point with like a mercantile class, people, because it used to be like you would have the royal courts where who had the finest clothes. And at some point you have some kind of, I think, class ambiguity where more people are dressing the same. So instead of just peasants and royalty, you have like, you have bourgeoisie, and then the middle, working people want to dress well. I mean, it used to be, if you see photographs just in America of sporting events like hockey games in the 1950s, everybody's wearing like a suit. It's wild. So I'd want to talk to him about how that has changed, because now something that's happening and that's been happening is that the flex in a work environment is not dressing up, it's dressing down.
Oh, so nice. The
people who we force to dress up are often like guards, security, folks like that. Whereas, so I actually saw one time, and this is the guy I'll mention next, Umberto Eco wrote an essay about his blue jeans. And I was reading like a secondary source who talked about this essay, and some guy commented on it. And he was like, "This is stupid. Clothing's dumb. Doesn't matter. I wear sweatshirts all the time. I run 3 successful startups. I've sold 2 of them, gonna sell the other one. I'm a multimillionaire. In fact, when I bought my 2 Teslas, each time I made a point to wear a jogging suit there, just sweatpants." And I'm like, okay, so clothing doesn't matter, but you made a point to wear a certain type of clothing when you went to buy a Tesla because you wanted to communicate something about yourself. But okay, whatever you said. And so that is happening where, I've worked at like firms where, I worked at a really evil place. Maybe we should talk about that someday. That helped us I wasn't there at the time, obviously, but that helped us get into Kuwait under really false auspices, and also probably killed people with representing big tobacco in the 50s. Anyway, that's a separate conversation. But I've seen situations where like the creative departments in firms will dress down, right? Just like t-shirts, jeans, whereas like account executives have to wear suits. And it's a flex. It's like, because traditionally that's the 2 things we do with clothing: fitting in and standing out. And so by not dressing well, by not dressing like I have money, I'm showing you that like I'm different from you, and I don't have to follow your rules, man. Right? That's basically it. So I want to talk to Marx about those 2 things. I'd want to talk about Umberto Eco about his jeans, because he talked about in this what was it called? His essay, Lumbar Thought. He talked about how his jeans were uncomfortable, especially the way they fit his crotch, and how that affected his ability to think. And I would want to talk to him like, what jeans are you wearing? Because this is interesting to me. First of all, I would say like maybe you should get some like Adriano Goldschmied jeans, who, AG Goldschmied, he came out AG jeans where it was like brushed cotton. So they are like really famously comfortable. There's moleskin jeans, right? So like maybe he was just wearing like raw denim. I don't know, but like there's better stuff for you to wear. And the reason why this is interesting to me particularly is the idea with style is that you don't think about your clothes, right? So even, and there's this whole idea of like, oh, I could never carry off what that person wears. Oh man, I wish I could wear that. Like little Nas X shows up to an award wearing a gown, right? But oh, he can carry it off because, and then that ties into this idea that it's all about being confident in what you wear, and that's true. But you can't fake that. Little Nas X can wear that gown because that is natural to him, right? And so what I like to do, I like to mess around. I like to put guillotines on polo shirts. I like to put upside down American flags under hoods. I like to do all this stuff and think about how all that fits into totemism and all the other stuff we talked about with like iconography, specifically on polos. But once you put it on, you do not want to think about it. And so like Beau Brummel, who was he invented like the kind of the prototypical suit as we think about it. And he broke away from macaroni, like this really ornate style, and just dressed in like plain colors and stuff. He would famously spend hours doing his cravat. Like people from around London would go watch him get dressed because he was doing it in this totally different way. But he said that if you're walking down the street and John Bull, Joe Public, like looks at you because of what you're wearing, you're doing it wrong. So the idea is like, yes, you think about what you're wearing, but once you put it on, you don't think about it. So I would suggest to Umberto Eco, like maybe we get you a different pair of jeans. So I think those are the two people. And I don't know how far left Umberto Eco was, but he had that list of fascism that I found really helpful. But definitely Marx, I'd want to talk to him about that stuff, and Echo about his genes. So those are the two people who immediately come to mind. Oh, one other thing, real quick. Okay, I would want a three-way conversation with John Paul Sartre and Dostoyevsky, because I'm really like Sartre's. I would want to specifically talk about Sartre's essay on the anti-Semite and Dostoyevsky's idea of the man of action from Notes from the Underground, and how well they map to each other and how well they map to MAGA. And the anti-Semite not literally mapping to MAGA in that they hate Jewish people, although we know a lot of fascists do hate Jewish people and a lot of MAGA people do hate Jewish people. But more this idea of like the troll, right? We kind of talked about trolls earlier, because John Paul Sartre in the essay on the anti-Semite, at one point, he's describing internet trolls when he talks about how like the anti-Semite knows they're wrong. They know they're ridiculous. They know that there's no reason whatsoever in what they're saying. They just want to mess with you, right? They take joy in not being rational. And then with Dostoevsky, his man of action, at one point Dostoevsky's talking about this idea, because there was this idea at the time, right, that people act in self-interest, and so there's a way to get them to act rationally. And the man of action, or the narrator of Notes from the Underground, at one point makes a point, something like, no, people will actually act against their best interest just to be obstinate. And so I think a lot about like vaccine. And so I would want to talk to both of them, like get them up to speed. Like, okay, here's MAGA. Like, this is what this is about. Like, how well with what you talked about with the anti-Semite and what you talk about with the man of action, how well do they kind of map to this? So those are the folks that I think I would want to talk to the most.
Awesome. Fascinating. All right, Cola. Do you have a favorite? Again, this is leftist book. You've been doing a good job of defining that any way you like, and that's totally fine. Yeah.
Oh man. Gosh, not that comes to mind. Most of the stuff that I read that I find, because I don't read theory, but I love reading history. And I for whatever, I mean, I guess everybody's controversial. And if you wait long enough, everybody's going to get canceled or fall out of vogue, speaking of fashion. But like Naomi Klein wrote The Shock Doctrine, which when I read that, I mean, just seeing it laid out, and it's an exhausting book, right? Yeah. I mean, just the way she lays out like the way neoliberals are really vultures was mind blowing. And so books like, I also found like Listen Liberal, which is probably lightweight for a lot of people who would consider themselves leftist, but I found it really helpful. I mean, I knew that Bill Clinton was kind of scuzzy, right? Just because of his philandering and what happened with Monica Lewinsky and all of that stuff. I didn't realize he and Newt Gingrich had a deal worked out to privatize Social Security. And the only reason that fell through is because Monica Lewinsky happened. Like, and I think the guys, I forget what the author's name is, but like talking about stuff like that, I find just immensely helpful. Just like, I mean, I already know that this stuff is screwed up, but seeing just how screwed up it is Thomas Frank. I find to be really helpful. But I mean, if you can make it through, like Naomi Klein's Shock Doctrine was helpful for me just because of just how excruciating it is. But, I mean, just like the we talked about Rumsfeld, the exploits in the Middle East, and how like not only this stuff was like subcontracted out to the nth degree, and to the point where like nothing got done. And like equipment is lying around rusting and stuff like that you hear troops talk about. So those are two books. They're kind of random. I don't really have a foundational book that like changed my life or anything, but those are two books that I find interesting. Yeah, as far as something from a left perspective, I don't know if you want to know about fashion writing in Renaissance Italy. I can recommend a good book by Eugenia Policelli about that, which is like actually super interesting to see like how women dealt with sumptuary laws, and then it kind of ties into her. She wrote the book on fashion under fascism in Italy, and you kind of see how all this stuff is happening over centuries with Italian culture, and how Mussolini is really wrestling with all that when he establishes fascist fashion authorities, fashion organizations, and then also his preferred means of fascist dress in terms of uniform, but then also for the people. So anyway, yeah. So I don't. Yeah, there you go.
That's fascinating. I've also been reading through Shock Doctrine. We put that on pause, but
okay.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
it's totally fascinating.
I mean,
I consider it required reading. They should make high schoolers read it, dude.
I think it would be great to have, again, going with the Cola thing of, kill American myths. That book does a real good job of blowing through a lot of myths, not the least of which would be making the world safe for democracy, right? Like that myth gets pretty roughed up in Shock Doctrine. And I am excited to read a book. I think it's called Overthrow, which is just about like CIA coups. I have that queued up. And so I'm excited to get into that. I promised my friend that I would read Tale of Two Cities because he teaches it in high school. He was like, if you're selling stuff that has guillotine on it, you have to read this. And so I started it. I do not remember Dickens being that dense. It is tough. Like I basically like have to diagram what's going on in the opening scenes with the carriage and everything. But anyway, I'm struggling through that, but I want to get into Overthrow afterwards. And I mean, listen, because I'm saying like, I don't really know theory. I don't really know this stuff. If people in the chat have suggestions for me, or if you want to hit me up on Twitter at the Cola Court, please do. I'd be super interested in that.
I'm also, I would not describe myself as well-read. However, you mentioned enjoying history, and there's this really great anthropological look at the world, which I've also been working my way through. I've not yet finished, by an anarchist writer, David Graeber, and it's called Debt, the First 5,000 Years of Debt. It's fascinating. It's like, he talks about money, but it's more like relationships. It's anthropological. It's stories about how communities and cultures interact with within their communities and also with each other. It's just fascinating. And I keep mentioning books that I haven't finished reading, and I feel guilty every time I do that. Okay, I'm going to keep pushing forward here. Got a couple more questions left. My last question is just streamer tips, and that, it sort of refers to, streaming like this, but you can think of it as a podcast, any content, YouTube tips. Like what should people know as they're making content out there? Perhaps you could also make it about fashion as well. You can redirect it that way. Yeah.
Um, so something that that I'm trying to like remind myself of is I mean, I deal, and this isn't good for brand mystique, right? But I deal with a lot of insecurity and feeling like less than other people and like comparing other people's external success to how I feel about myself. So it's things like, I mean, just like right earlier today, somebody who got my Calvin peeing on the Blue Lives Matter flag T-shirt, somebody had posted something about Blue Lives Matter flag house, so fascist flagging on Instagram. He tagged me. He made a comment. He tagged me. He was like, "Hey, check out this person has some good artwork." And somebody piggybacked on that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, also check out this other company." So I checked them out. This other company has like 56,000 followers, and I'm looking at their stuff and their designs, and I'm trying to be honest with myself, like. It's like Kanye on one of his albums is like, are these motherfuckers that much better than me? And like, because like when I see people who are doing stuff similar to what I'm doing and have like this big following, big success, like I feel really insecure about that. And like on Twitter, like I'll have those thoughts of like I get real insecure if a tweet doesn't get likes or something, and I know that that's ridiculous and immature on my part, but it happens. And what I've discovered through a few projects over time is, and what if I'm finally putting into practice now is like, don't bail. And I'll just speak for myself. Because I don't have enough success to tell other people like how to be successful. But I do have a little bit of experience, like knowing how to not drive myself insane anymore. And part of it is realizing like, why are you doing this? And like, I hope Cola blows up. I hope Cola is a household name, right? But to get there, like, I'm putting maximum effort in right now, and things are happening the way they're happening. And I always want things faster, bigger, more than what they are now. But when I look back to what Cola was doing, the first year of Cola, and when I say the first year of Cola, it was just I had things on a website. That was it, right? And I didn't start tweeting and other things until later. For the first year that Cola was live, I sold one T-shirt to a person I did not know personally. And like now that is long gone, right? So just from like last fall, it's a completely different experience than what it is now. But still, I'm looking at like Supreme or these other like huge brands, and like that's what I want. And it's like, well, why do you want that? Like, what do you want? Why are you doing this? You're doing this because you see the short circuit that happens when Dad Bro looks at your guillotine polo, right? And you can see that it's not computing. You are, and I don't mean to self-aggrandize. You are here to kill American myths. You want to scramble the transmission of the myths from media, from our leaders, from all the myth tellers into people's brains. Like that's what you want to do. And you're doing, and it's resonating with people. You're getting more and more followers, and you might not ever have 56,000. You might have 560,000. But if I don't keep my eye on why I'm doing it, and I get hung up on all the things I don't have, I'm not going to be able to make it. But when I remember why I'm doing it, and I stay true to that, then like the other stuff, I mean, it's a joy. It's a joy to do what I do. Like I love it, and that's so, and people tell you this stuff all the time. Follow your joy. That's a luxury, right? That is a luxury to be able to do that. But whatever it is that you're doing, like try to find the joy in it, because if you can do that, then it is going to get you through so much. If you're like me, self-doubt and insecurity, and if you're waking up early to do it before your job, things like that, if you can find the joy in it, that is going to be a massive, massive help to you.
Oh, this has been a joy. And that wraps up my questions for you. Yeah, honestly, my gosh. I maybe noticed a couple questions from chat along the way. I want to also give you an opportunity if you have any questions for me. I did go over the hour, so I don't want to take any extra of your time. You're welcome to stay. I don't want to. I also don't want to kick you out, but I want to respect your time too.
4:20, man.
Hey, look at that.
I saw you on the bong earlier, and I'm like, hey, Monica. I'm going to be talking to this guy. She's like, oh, great.
Ribbon and bomb.
So no,
Yep.
spoke up if you want to. No, if people in chat have questions, I'm happy to field to answer anything you're asking.
One question I remember, and you could skip any question, of course. What kind of music do you like? What do you listen to? You were mentioning that your guilty pleasure perhaps is listening to the same stuff. I definitely relate to that. What do you listen to?
Okay. So I'll tell man, this has been a weird few years for me. So when I was growing up, I grew up in the United Pentecostal Church, which is an apostolic Pentecostal church. So that is speaking in tongues, yes. Holy rollers, people rolling on the ground in the Spirit, people running around the aisles in the Spirit, being slain in the Spirit, people dancing in the Spirit, baptism by immersion. So not as radical as snake handling and strychnine drinking, but that part of the country, and headed towards that part of the religion. And so what that also entailed was no going to the cinema. No, women had to wear dresses, grow their hair long. You could not cut their hair, had to wear dresses. They had to wear shirt sleeves to their elbows, couldn't show leg, yada, yada, yada. Well, part of all of that is no secular music. It's not an option. So I grew up listening. The most rebellious music I could get my hand on was Christian metal, because the idea of listening to anything secular just wasn't an option. So I grew up listening to like Stryper and just like these hair metal bands, And then when I was 12, my brother came back from California and he had a stereo with him. And I had never seen anything like that before. These two massive speakers. He had a turntable and he just started playing vinyl for me. And he played this track for me. And there's this little, like a sample of like horns, like a brass band. And then this bounce, bump, bump, and then Morrissey's voice. And I know how Morrissey fans can be. But in that moment, it was one of 3 moments in my life where I knew in the moment that my life was changing forever. One of those times was the first time that I really tripped on LSD. The first 2 times I took acid, I took this really speedy shit that didn't have any visuals or anything. The third time I took it, I knew in that moment my life's changing. When I heard the Smiths for the first time, I knew that my life is changing right now. So it's been a weird few years. And I've been I was one of those people that as Morrissey did Morrissey stuff and said reggae is vile and said, why aren't there like more white people in the top 40? And then he said things about Chinese people that was inexcusable. And I'm like, he's talking about their treatment he's talking about wet markets. This is Morrissey. This is the guy, the gender bender. This is the guy that I got called. People would yell homophobic slurs at me in college for dressing like him. Like he's one of us. And now he's out and out fash. And so that has been like one of the weirdest things. What do you do when this person literally gave you hope and like in a really fundamental way, if it's too much to say saved your life, like saved your soul, saved your spirit. And now he's a fucking fascist who follows Tommy Robinson and whatever IDF or whoever the Islamophobic fash organization is. And it's just like, what the fuck happened? What happened to you? And I know what happened. He lived inside a bubble of wealth and fame and total privilege for 30 years. But it's so weird. So, I still listen to the Smiths because I'm like, okay, but the Smiths had Johnny Marr. So that kind of cancels it out. And I will tell you that even though I would never listen to their instrumental tracks, I really do think that Neil Tennant from the Pet Shop Boys is one of the greatest lyricists I've ever heard. Like, just fantastic lyrics from that guy. And, the music is whatever it is, right? Again, a lot of it, I would never want to listen to instrumental versions, but I love him. And then I would say, okay, so what the Smiths were for me growing up when I was at my worst with drinking and drugs and really living on the fringes of society. Then I heard the Mountain Goats, and then that album Tallahassee and the song No Children. That was my theme. That was me and my buddy Andy. That was our theme song. And I escaped that life, and Andy stuck with it, and he's dead, and it's not because of I'm not alive because of any virtue. I'm just alive because I ran out of money before he did.
Oh gosh.
And so, but that was our shit. Like, we listened to John Darnielle and the Mountain Goats. And I remember one time we went to the Empty Bottle to see him, and Andy accosted him and demanded that he play No Children. Man, that didn't go over well, but he did. That was the last song that he did. That was a great set. And then, he started to gradually, as a guy who was gradually blown up over the last, quarter century. And so the next time he's in town, he's playing the, what is it in Logan Square? Is it Logan Auditorium? It's on the second floor. Well, in any event, he was playing a venue there. So we go, and I was hammered. And he came out, and he comes out with like a cellist, and I'm standing there because, usually the Mountain Goats is him and a drummer and then a bassist, right? He comes out with a cellist, and I don't even recognize the music. And I was disgusted. I ran into a music critic I knew on the way out, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This isn't putting my life on the line music. This is crap. I can't believe Darnielle's doing this. Garbage. So I go home, and I had lost Andy in the crowd. And the next day, Andy calls me. He's like, hey, man, why did you leave before the Mountain Goats came out?
Oh,
So, yeah, I completely went ballistic over one of the opening acts, including just reaming them to a music critic as the Mountain Goats. Who then the critic is just like, yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah. The exit's that way. So the Mountain Goats were huge for me, especially the albums like Tallahassee, We Shall All Be Healed. And the album he did where it's all biblical verses, fantastic. I know there's a new album out. And, it takes me forever to vibe with shit. And, I'll find a track and I'll listen to it 50 times. And then I'll start to listen to the track after that just because I'm not quick on the draw to rewind the first track to go back. So I hear a little bit of it and I'm like, I don't want to hear that. I want to hear the one before it. And then eventually I like that track. And it takes me like a year to listen to an album and get into it. But, there's some stuff by Kanye West that I really like. I mean, I really like Life of Pablo. I can get deep into that for whatever reason. I'm not sure. And because I was into his first two albums, loved those. And then I kind of fell off maybe with more avant-garde stuff he was doing and then kind of came back in on Life of Pablo. Also, when I was young, the Afghan Wigs, and then after that, the Twilight Singers and Greg Dooley's work. I like him. He does. Greg Dooley comes from that 90s angsty, also kind of macho stuff, but he really does understand the angst of like alcoholism and drug use and all of that stuff. So that's some of the stuff I like. But I mean, the Smiths were it for me in high school. I mean, they were it, man. They were a big part of my life. And then to see how Morrissey has started. And now, and again, in retrospect, it was obvious the whole time when he wrote songs like Bengalian Platforms, Asian Rut, and National Front Disco. And people like me were like, no. He's holding up a mirror to British society. Like, this is ironic. This is Morrissey. He's wearing thrift shop blouses. He's got gladiola in the back of his pants on top of the pops. He's our guy. Well, no, he wasn't. And so that's kind of my musical ballywick would be like the Smiths, Mountain Goats, and some Afghan Wigs and some Kanye.
Yeah. Right. All right. Well, hey, Cola, we've had ourselves a time here today. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thank you very much. It's been
a lot of fun. I've learned a lot. I think chat. Y'all learned a lot too. I love how you mentioned you don't describe yourself a leftist, but you know a lot about Marxist Coat, and I thought that was fascinating to learn about that too. We're going to go ahead and let you go here. Before we do, I want you to give yourself the shout out again. What do you do? Where do people find you? Just in case anyone joined us in the middle of the chat.
Yeah, so I run an apparel and art label in Chicago called the Cola Corporation. So it's thecolacorporation.com right now. This is our project. Chuds is an action figure that satirizes the far right in America. All proceeds go to benefit immigrants in America. And you can find that by going to the website or going to our Twitter, which is at the Cola Corp, CORP. It is the link in our Instagram bio. That handle is the Cola Corporation. So this is on a fundraiser right now. So we need about $3,000 more dollars. We've raised $2,000 to get this run together. Again, 100% of profits will go to help immigrants in America. I am not taking a penny of this. I've got to pay the toy makers who are making all of this by hand in Pennsylvania. They're modding out existing figures. And so I would encourage you to check that out. Check out the website. Let me know what you think. My info at thecolacorporation.com if you want to shoot me an email. Otherwise, check me on Twitter or Insta. So this has been awesome. Really appreciate getting to talk to you and interacting with folks in chat a little bit. And yeah, man, I'll catch you online.
It was absolutely my pleasure, Cola. Thanks for joining us. We invited you in the spirit of building leftist unity, strength of power. You've been a great guest. Peace and
all right.
solidarity,
Peace, everybody.
Nice. That was that. Whoops. Supposed to happen. Yo, that was Cola. Hey, listener, you just heard an episode of Leftist and Chill, the show you never knew you didn't need but still can't live without, the podcast version. Content like this is only made with the support of listeners like yourself. Please support at patreon.com/iDanSimpson today.